I identify as a bird, soaring through the sky and open. Those below look up at me in amazement, like I did a cool trick when I flew south for my own safety and sang Negro spirituals outside their windows when the sun come up, on the outside looking. And they think I'm outside. In my own words, intersectionality is how different avenues of my or one's life intersect, much like, and I know they say, don't say the definition with using the word, but it's much like a road intersection, how one road and another road can meet, together and merge. It's the same way that one avenue of anyone's life can meet another and affect one another. Those can, I think the word is adjacent examples. The same, affects. The things that stand out the most and intersect in my life are, of course, everything. But I find the biggest avenues of my life that merge are my being black, my being a woman, my mental health, and my spina bifida / hydrocephalus. They all mesh at times, more than any other, aspects. I think some of the most challenging things about being a black woman are some of the things that are most commonly talked about, like when we're emotional or when we're not emotional and, just holding it together, it's always perceived as, or most of the time perceived as, we always have an attitude. We are always, it's always something negative and not just she's going through something. Or, giving her the space to be soft as a woman, even as the Bible puts it, as a weaker vessel. We don't get to be a weaker vessel. We have to be a strong black woman all the time, because that's our societal, I don't even know if that's a word, but it's our societal definition. And even to kind of almost break the two up, me personally, being a black person, what we define blackness as can be a type of barrier. And I say that because some of us might not know we sound like we're having a bucket when we say it, but it's the you talk white for me. It's the you talk white for me. Or you listen to white Caucasian music, if you don't do this, you're not black. All of that. And I'm saying a lot. But maybe it's from the lack of, truly having a pinpoint of where we come from because of how we come from, where we come from. So we just kind of define it by certain things. But it's also kind of ignorant because a lot of those things were also made by us. So that's a challenge to me. Being well-spoken is by some defined as Caucasian instead of just intelligence, or instead of just human. That is and I don't know how to be taken, but it's an enslaved mentality or a broken mentality to say that intelligence belongs to anyone. I won't even say that it belongs to a Caucasian person, but that it belongs to anyone. We've graduated from not being allowed to be educated, and then when we become educated, we're not as said by us. My mental health, I believe that anyone's mental health journey is a lifelong journey, just like their overall journey. It's been a long time coming as far as defining the issues that I have. They've always been there, but there's been, a coming of getting the grit to speak to someone to say, okay, there's something here. I was diagnosed with general anxiety disorder in 2019, as well as depression. I decided to talk to my doctor about it. At that time, my doctor happens to have a background in counseling as well as his medical degrees, or a degree, I don't know, what he has. But he mentioned, that background, and it works for me. He's welcoming, and it made it a bit easier to talk to him about it. Yes. My doctor, upon, they give you this, he gave me an evaluation. I just pretty much checked off, how many times in X amount of days or weeks have you had this type of thought, that type of thought. And you tally it up, and I guess go from there. At the place I go to see him, there actually is a therapist. And, he set me up to start seeing her. I've been seeing Dr. Lewis ever since. And it's been going good. One of the things I know probably for a lot of us would be important for, the type of person that you're going to be talking to, that you're going to be comfortable talking to this person. So one of the things that is important for me is that she is a black woman. And it makes it, that much easier. your brain has this thing called, I believe, neuroplasticity, where basically, I'm trying to make this as simple as possible. So he asks, and I don't really remember what was on there, how many times have you had, thoughts of, I don't even know why I'm here in the past 3 weeks, just to say a number. And they ask that because the neuroplasticity, I'm putting it like driving again. This is your first time here. You come here about 2 or 3 more times, it's gonna be like, okay, I'm just going to see Whitney. Because I've been there. It's like, just in my memory now. Because it's repetitive, something I've done a couple of times. It's not new to me. So, same thing with our thoughts. Once you've had so many different experiences with certain traumas, sometimes your brain, it makes that avenue to that place easier the more times you use it, that thought. And so with therapy or whatever avenue one may take does helps us to make that, the less used road or thought pattern or whatever you want to call it. And let's do a positive one and use this more. Let's reframe our thoughts and think this more, and then it'll become second nature, as opposed to what has become second nature because we've been through it so many times. What's really interesting is I know all these things. Again, I always have had these things that were there. Wanted to be a therapist before I was diagnosed with general anxiety disorder. Well, I still want to be a therapist. And my depression, but in the midst of them getting to a certain place to where I started to work on them and everything, I was already in school, hadn't, really taken the time to work on it for real, the way that I have started to now, and it's a process, it's a day-to-day. But I did have to take that time just because in the midst of other things that we won't get into what going on, I had to just, take a break. And I was thinking the break was going to be a little minute, but it was 4 years. And I feel like now, I've been going through my therapy for a year. And I'm ready to get back into it because I've developed, how I cope. And I know what's going on. It's not just I have these feelings that always make me feel like this. It's called anxiety. I have ways to cope when I feel it. It doesn't go, it's not going away, but at least I know how to, live with it. I guess would be how I would put that.
Yeah, sure. Like it's more, you found a more sufficient way to live with versus than just.
Yeah. And again, it's a process. That doesn't mean, I use every couple methods that I know every time. Because it's different every day. Some days you feel stronger than other days. It's just one day at a time.
Because,
That's a good point.
yeah.
Because people, they make this craze about like stopping it and everything, but to be honest, trauma and mental health, mental illness issues, that's the reason for, those type of things. It's not just, oh, I want to be high all the time because I'm bored. No, it's never that. It's the thoughts they can't control, that they want to just shut up, and they don't, and they go away when they have. It's really, it's not that easy, but it's that simple. And things that they've been through. Everybody has a different story, and some things might not be, big scary monsters, but it's hard for that person to hold. So spina bifida is Latin for a split spine, and the first trimester of a pregnancy, when of course the spine develops, it doesn't develop correctly, and that forms spina bifida in short. So it just happens really early on in development. There are 3 types of spina bifida. There's spina bifida occulta, which is a type that is most, I guess, they say functional. You could have an individual that has spina bifida occulta and, they don't have as much mobility issues, I guess. Or they may, just have less effects. Then there's meningocele, meningeal, and that will be, I guess, the second. I'm not really clear on that one, but I would assume it's somewhere in the middle. And then there's myelomeningocele. Milo, like Milo's tea. Me, ninja, seal. And that is the worst type of spina bifida. That's actually what I have. And with that type of spina bifida comes more effects come into play. Most people, look at anyone who is a wheelchair user and they, we all just use a wheelchair. It's nothing more or less than that. But there's more to my disability than just me having mobility issues. Because I have spina bifida and meningocele, there was, or is, I should say, extra, there's a name for it and all of that, but, I don't want to be long-winded. Extra fluid just kind of builds up on my brain. And I'm assuming I'm seeing pictures, but of course I was the baby when I was born. So it, kind of gives a swollen skull look. And you have to, of course, perform surgery and do an artificial shunt. There's more than one type. I have a VP shunt, and I got my first VP shunt, I believe, either when I was born or the next day. And I only had two revisions and the initial, placement. And hydrocephalus comes with a brain fog. I have really bad hand-eye coordination, bad organization. My sight, one may just think, oh, she just can't, she has bad vision and, leave it at that. But that actually comes from my hydrocephalus. I have an astigmatism in my right eye. And I just hard at seeing in general. And, of course with the brain fog and all of that, I do have a sort of what you would call a learning disability with, I think they watch it in certain subjects like math, science, maybe history, don't quote me on that. But I know math, no bueno for me. And then there's incontinence, which incontinence has affected arguably, and I mean everyone who has spina bifida and has incontinence may not feel the same way, but it has affected me more than my mobility, or I don't know about more than, but it's affected my mental health. It's affected my confidence more. I guess I would say that, just because and I don't want to say normal, but the average child, they, by 2 years old, 2 or 3, you just go to the bathroom. For a person with incontinence, I wore, what's the word for it? I wore, just, I guess you would call them like the pins, until about the 6th grade. I think, about the 6th grade. And I only stopped wearing them because the embarrassment, it's like, who wants to be walking around like this? And you could tell in certain pants. I want to go to sleepovers. Let's just get past this. So I just stopped wearing them. There wasn't no process that I can remember. I just didn't want to wear them anymore. Just to save myself some embarrassment. I think there was an instance in middle school where, like, I think my pants were too big or something, and that I want to say that was my last straw, because we all know kids are mean. They're really mean.